Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Marcy Depew from Visions Investment Services. I'm very happy that you decided to join us today for our second Women in Wealth seminar. Today we have representatives from MFS, and the subject content is Savvy Women, Smart Investors. I'm now going to turn it over to Phil Martin from MFS. And thank you again for joining us.
Hi, my name is Phil Martin, Director with MFS Investment Management. Thank you for joining us today. You may recognize MFS as having created America's first mutual fund back in 1924. I'm not here today to talk about any of our top performing mutual funds. Instead, I'm here to introduce our keynote speaker, Sheridan Culhane. Sheridan is a business development consultant with MFS, and she's here to present Savvy Women, Smart Investors. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Thanks, Phil, and thank you, Marcy, for having me. I love getting together for women's events. I have 3 sisters, I have a daughter, I have a niece, so this sort of feels like home to me. It's kind of my comfort zone. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. Over 75% of women say they don't know how to invest or to choose a financial product, that they wouldn't call themselves an investor. But let me ask you this. How many of you have some sort of retirement account? Doesn't matter if it's an IRA, 401k, Roth, 403b. Do you have one? Then you are an investor. You don't have to be a stock picker or constantly making trades in your account in order to be one. That's just one form of investing. You don't have to do it that way. In studies, they actually show that women's portfolios tend to perform slightly better than men's over the long term because they don't mess with it as much. So right now, with that retirement account, you are an investor. You've been doing it for years. It isn't scary, intimidating, or complicated. It just may feel that way sometimes because we as women, we've been systematically cut out of the conversation for decades. Now, what I have in front of me here is an excerpt from a home economics textbook from back in the 1950s. And it's called The Good Housewife. And this is what women were taught in school. This is what they were told to do and aspire to be. I'm going to read you 3 of my favorites. So first, make him comfortable. Have a cool or warm drink ready for him. Have him lean back in a comfortable chair or suggest that he lie down in the bedroom. Arrange his pillow and offer to take off his shoes. Speak in a low, soothing voice. Allow him to relax and unwind. That's all one rule. Number 2. Minimize all noise. At the time of his arrival, eliminate all noise from the washer, dryer, or vacuum. Encourage the children to be quiet. And then we have some do nots. Don't greet him with problems and complaints. Don't complain if he's late for dinner. Count this as a minor problem compared to what he may have gone throughout the day. Now, whenever I read those, I'm reminded of some advice that my grandmother gave to me when I first got married. She told me that if I was ever running late preparing dinner for my partner, David, that I should throw onions and garlic into a boiling pot of water because then it would at least smell as if dinner is on its way. So thank goodness for me and for all of us women here today, the 1970s came, because that's when things really started to change for us. As people challenged those old rules and women started entering the workforce. And if we compare back then to now, things, they have changed. Women are now out-earning men in terms of college degrees and advanced degrees. Women used to make up only 30% of the workforce. Now it's close to 60%. And close to 30% of women are their family's primary breadwinner, compared to the 11% that it used to be. So things are changing, which is great. But the reality is that they aren't changing fast enough. Because 90% of us, of women, will be solely responsible for their financial future at some point throughout their lives. Majority of the time, this happens as a result of a loved one passing or a relationship ending, meaning after a death or a divorce, because we as women, we tend to live longer, and because of the high divorce rates. From reading studies and from speaking with women of all ages, all across the country, I cannot tell you how many have said how difficult it was to not only deal with that loss, but then on top of it, to have to wrap their head around their financial situation, most for the first time in their entire lives. How many regretted not getting involved sooner? How many wished that they could have learned on their own terms, right? Because they wanted to, rather than because they had to. So that's why I'm really excited that you're all here tonight. You're choosing to be part of this conversation right now. So my goal is to build your financial confidence by providing you some information about things that can go wrong for women at different life stages. So you can make the choice to have these conversations now. Understand where you are, that you have options, and how Visions Investment Services can help you decide what's most appropriate depending on your personal and financial goals. And because we are women, and we still tend to take on all of those caregiving responsibilities in addition to everything else that we do, we're going to cover it all. We're going to talk about how to raise financially capable kids and grandkids, better understanding and maybe even anticipating the needs of your parents as they age, and finally asking yourself, are you prepared for some of the things that may come your way? It's a lot, so let's get into it. First up, for those of you with kids or grandkids, with those of kids or grandkids in the 8 to 18 range, grab a pen or pull up a notepad. I have 2 book recommendations for you. The first is Raising Financially Fit Kids by Jolene Godfrey. Raising Financially Fit Kids by Jolene Godfrey. And this one really teaches parents about how to teach their children about the value of an earned dollar, so they don't go and blow all of their babysitting money on candy like I used to do growing up. It has all sorts of games, strategies, and things that you can do with kids to teach them more about money as they age. The other book is meant for the older end of the spectrum, so 13 to 18-year-olds, and it's called The Official Money Guide for Teenagers. The Official Money Guide for Teenagers. And this one covers everything. Saving, spending, investing, budgeting, all these really important concepts that you want to expose children to from a young age. That way they sort of have that financial foundation to build off of. For those of you with kids or grandkids in the 18 to 25 range, there are 2 big financial mistakes that young adults make. The first is not understanding what impacts their credit score. And the second is not taking advantage of their retirement plan through work. For the credit score, you want to talk to them about what it is and how to maintain a healthy one. So things like paying bills on time, keeping balances low, only opening up credit when you need it, the difference between a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry, and most importantly, to actually check it. They want to do it once a year, and it's free to do that one time. Most credit card issuers or lenders, they offer it for free nowadays. I know I can get mine on my mobile app, but there are also some free credit scoring websites available. 2 of them are up on the screen right now: creditkarma.com and annualcreditreport.com. For the retirement account, you want to make sure that your kids sign up for whatever plan their company offers, if they offer one, especially if there's any sort of matching element to it. They're literally leaving money on the table if they don't take advantage of those. You want to talk to them about stepping up or increasing their contributions every single time that they get a raise, with the end goal of maxing that out each and every year. These retirement plans, they really are one of the simplest ways for young adults to start accumulating wealth and then begin to experience the power of compounding returns. For those of you who are or have kids or grandkids in the 25 to 50 range, another good book for you. This one's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. And this one is really meant for people that know that they should be saving for their future, but they may not know how or where to start. So he talks about the importance of things like patience, discipline, and keeping a long-term perspective. It's a simple read, but a really important one for anyone that's looking to learn more about successful money management. Now, when it comes to our kids, we're prepared to take care of them, right? We understand this responsibility. But what's catching a lot of people off guard is the need to care for their aging parents. Odds are your parents are going to need your help. 68% of Americans believe that they're going to be able to rely on their families to meet their long-term care needs. And 92% of people that are caregivers, they're also financial caregivers, whether that's through directly contributing to the costs for care or through managing the family finances. Now, estimates for these costs, they range. It depends on where you are and the type of care that you're going to receive. So I looked some up the other day to give you an idea. A home health aide on average costs about $4,000 a month. A private room in an assisted living facility is right about the same, $4,000 a month. A semi-private room in a nursing home is about $7,750 a month, while a private room is $1,000 more, $8,800 a month. Now, I'm not telling you these numbers to scare you. That's not my intention at all. What I'm trying to do here is prepare you. Because too often, for years, we hear parents say something along the lines of, "We're fine, everything's fine, we're good." And you leave the conversation at that, only to then have them show up at your doorstep at 75 or 82 without a dollar to their name. A majority of the time, that door that they end up knocking at is that of a daughter or a daughter-in-law. Because despite how far we've come as women, traditional caregiving responsibilities, they still tend to fall on our shoulders. So to prevent yourself from being blindsided by these costs, or even just to having to deal with that responsibility later in life, as so many are, my suggestion for you would be to start these caregiving conversations with your loved ones right now. Have them early and have them often. You want to make sure that you know where their estate planning documents are and that they're in good order. You want to ask them for logins and passwords to different accounts That way, if they slip and fall and are stuck in the hospital for a few days, you can continue to pay bills for them. You want to ask them where they want to live, what they want to do with their pets, where they hide their spare keys. And you need to know what financial resources that they have. This is the only way to know if it's something that you may have to build into your financial plan. The longer you wait to start these conversations, the more difficult they tend to get. Now, if you've already been met with some resistance, or if you're just getting to the point where you're about to start to have these conversations, another book to check out. This one is called How to Say It to Seniors by David Solie. Last name spelled S-O-L-I-E. How to Say It to Seniors. And I've heard some people call this one the What to Expect When You're Expecting book for dealing with your parents as they age. He's a geriatric psychologist and goes into some of the communication roadblocks that people hit when they're trying to help the elderly, which, if you haven't had to deal with yet, it can be a little bit of a frustrating situation because oftentimes what they say, it's very different than what they mean. So he talks about why seniors act the way that they do and how to most effectively deal with them, right? How you can help them without making them feel small. All right, now so far we've talked about how to raise financially capable kids and grandkids. We've talked about how to help your parents as they get older. Now let's get to my favorite part of the conversation, and that's you. How can you be more financially savvy? There are 3 great challenges that we face in regards to our own security. The first is rising healthcare costs. The second is making good Social Security decisions. And the last is confidently knowing how to invest. Now, for those healthcare costs, no surprise to hear that costs, they are going up. In fact, they've about quadrupled in the past 50 years alone. But what we need to be concerned about as women is that we actually cost more. And it's not because we consume any more healthcare than a man in a typical year, but it's because we tend to live longer. Women outlive men by about 5 years. If you look at people in their 80s and older, for every 1 man, there are 2 women. For people in their 90s, for every 1 man, there are 3 women. And these extra years that we happen to live, they tend to be pretty expensive in terms of healthcare costs. The example on the screen in front of you has it easily piling up to over $100,000. So to help you mitigate some of these costs, something that you may want to consider is long-term care insurance or other long-term care options. 70% of people over the age of 65, they end up needing some sort of long-term care, but only 1/3 of people over the age of 40 have money set aside to pay for it. That is a huge discrepancy. So speak with your financial advisor to see if this is something that may make sense for you and for your goals. Or if you know you're going to be one of those individuals that's financially responsible for their parents, this could also be something worth looking into. Another healthcare-related expense that can sneak up on women and add to costs throughout retirement are changes to Medicare premiums. Now, because a lot of women are single or become suddenly single in retirement, even though in either one of those events, your income, it typically drops, the amount that you pay in Medicare premiums can actually pretty substantially go up because you go from filing married jointly to filing alone. It's not unheard of for someone to go from paying no surcharges to paying something like an average increase of over 120%. Now, the key to controlling these comes down to your modified adjusted gross income, because that's what's going to impact what tax bracket that you're in and therefore what those surcharges are. So the solution to this problem is diversification. It's making sure that you have tax-free, tax-deferred, taxable accounts. That way you have options for where you can pull income from throughout retirement. A lot of times when we think about our sort of traditional retirement income options, what pops into my head are things like pensions, IRAs, dividends, Social Security, all of which increase your modified adjusted gross income. What we forget about are the things that don't. Things like HSAs, Roth 401ks, longevity and life insurance. So make sure that you speak with your financial advisor about all of your current holdings. That way they can make sure that you're properly diversified and have options for where you can pull income from. Challenge number 2, Social Security. Now, one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, that people over the age of 60 make is not fully understanding their Social Security options. And that's because Social Security, it's complicated, right? How old you are, how long you've worked, how much you've earned, if you're single, married, divorced, remarried, widowed, those are just some of the things that can impact your benefit options. Social Security really is one of those things that comes down to the specifics for each individual person. So I can't walk you through everything, but I will share with you 3 common and costly mistakes that I see people make. And the first is applying early. When I was growing up, we sort of grew up with the mantra, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're really late. So I always want to be early for things, right? Early in my head equals good. Well, if you are trying to maximize your Social Security benefit, you may not want to apply early. If you apply for Social Security at the age of 62 or any time before your full retirement age, which is age 66 or 67, depending on when you were born, you get a reduced benefit. You get a lower amount. This is true for your own benefit, the spousal, and the survivor. Second one, this one is for divorcees. Now, the general rule is that if you are married for 10 years or longer, you are eligible to receive the spousal and survivor benefits off of your ex or exes. So 10 years is the key. Now, I see this impacting people in 2 ways. First, don't assume the Social Security Administration knows everything. Right? They may have no idea that you were married from the age of 21 to 31. You may not have even spoken a word to that person since, but you could still be entitled to that benefit. So remember, it's up to you to prove marriages and divorces. And the other way that I see this impacting people, and you can take this or leave it, but it's the honest to goodness truth, I cannot tell you how many people, women in particular, have come up to me and told me that they wish that they knew about this 10-year rule because they would have held on to that marriage for an extra 2 years, 1 year, a couple months in some cases. It's 10 years or you get nothing. So just something to keep in mind. And finally, third one, this is for married couples. It's really important that the highest income earner, whoever that is, that they understand how their decision as to when to apply for Social Security, how it will impact the surviving spouse for the rest of their life. Now, I had heard that before, but it didn't really click for me until one of my friends, Doug, told me about his grandparents. Now, Doug's grandfather applied for Social Security at the age of 62, knowing full well he was going to get a reduced benefit. But he had a reason. None of the men in his family had lived past the age of 67, so he wanted that money, and he wanted that money now. And sure enough, he died at the age of 67. But what he didn't realize was that him applying early, it actually locked his wife into a lower survivor benefit for the rest of her life. She was 2 years younger than him, and guess how old she was when she died? She was 103 years old. 103. So that seemingly small decision that he made, it ended up having an almost 4-decade impact on his surviving spouse. Now, I know that it sounds like I'm harping on Social Security a little bit, but it's because it can make a pretty big impact in terms of your quality of life in retirement, especially for women. 1 in 2 women rely on Social Security for over half of their retirement income needs. So your takeaway here is to speak with your financial advisor, speak with Visions Investment Services before applying. That way they can arm you with the questions and the information to bring to the Social Security Administration. That way you make sure that you get that maximum benefit that you're entitled to. All right, we're in the home stretch, confidently knowing how to invest. My top 10 rules are on the screen, but I'm going to make it nice and easy for you and boil it down to my big 3. The first is diversify, both in terms of the account types, like we talked about beforehand, and in terms of what you're investing in, stocks versus bonds versus cash. Getting that mix right and managing it over time really is one of the best ways to make sure that you meet your long-term financial goals in a responsible way. Number 2, consider staying in the market even when scared. Now, I know that this one is much easier said than done. At our home office in Boston, we actually have CNBC playing on all the monitors constantly. And we jokingly refer to it as the constantly negative business channel because they always seem to be reporting one bad thing after another. Remember, at the end of the day, the basic goal for every single investor is to buy low and sell high. For buying low, think about getting a shirt on sale at your favorite store. That's buying low. For selling high, think about your house, right? Ideally, you probably want to sell it for more than what you paid for it. That's selling high. Now, this makes sense, but when it comes to our investments, we let our emotions get in the way, and we tend to do the exact opposite. When we see those headlines about how great everything is, that's when we want to invest. And then when we see those scary ones, that's where we want to pull our money out and head for the hill. Resist this urge as best you can. Overreacting to market volatility really is one of those things that can delay or derail your retirement plans. Finally, number 3, it's actually number 10 on the screen, and that's stay educated. You can give yourself a big check mark because you showing up today means that you're already committed to this. A way that you can continue to do this into the future, there's a pretty good website out there. It's called lightbulbpress.com. lightbulbpress.com. And they have all sorts of guides and brochures on different financial topics, written in a way that's really easy to understand. What's a stock? What's a bond? What's a mutual fund? Personal finance, estate planning. So once a year, come to the website and order a workbook. What you'll do is you'll constantly raise your game in terms of what you know about the industry, which will help you become a way more confident investor. Now, I know that we've gone over a lot today, right? We talked about how to help your kids, how to help your parents, and how to help yourself. All of those tools and resources that you can take advantage of. But I do have one final ask, and it's that you pick one. Out of everything that I went over today, pick one thing that you can do to put yourself in a better financial situation than you are today. Let your advisor know what that one thing is so they can help you complete it. That's what they're here for. It's why they're here. It's to help you and your family achieve your long-term financial goals, whatever those may be. Now, before I turn it back to Marcy, I had a different friend send me over an article from the 1950s the other day. And it's just as hilarious and horrifying as The Good Housewife Rules, but this one's called 129 Ways to Get a Husband. And it has tips like, wear a Band-Aid. People always ask what happened. Have your car break down at strategic places. Stand in a corner and cry softly. Chances are good that they'll come over to find out what's wrong. Get a sunburn. That's it. Nothing else. Just get a sunburn. And my favorite one, stand on a busy street corner with a lasso. Very subtle. So clearly things are different nowadays, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I hope you learned something new. And with that, I hope you're leaving with a smile on your face. Thank you.
Wow, what a great presentation by Sheridan. We thank you so much for this insightful information, and thanks for joining us. So for further information, please visit our website, Visions Investment Services, Women in Wealth. It's there that you can connect with us to schedule an appointment. You can also see a replay of this presentation. So thanks for joining us. We look forward to our next seminar. Have a great day.